This may come as a surprise, but I actually don't watch a lot of photography YouTube since I started my own channel, and there's two reasons for that. One, I spend a lot of time doing photography here, and it's kind of a lot of work, so I end up watching other interests on YouTube to unwind and be entertained. Like Tasting History with Max Miller or Astrum, those are some of my favorites. The second reason is I don't want to rip off other photography channels or get too inspired or be tempted by any particular photography trend. So of all the YouTube videos I put into the void, probably 95% come to me while I'm just about to fall asleep or at random moments during the day. That's actually why I have one of these. The other 5% come from YouTube making fairly terrible suggestions based on what you all search for, or from vidIQ, whose suggestions kind of will spark something more original, as their suggestions tend to be like extremely generic. Sometimes the suggestions are just incredibly stupid, like a detailed comparison of the Nikon Z52 and Nikon Z9. They are at completely opposite ends of the spectrum. I think flipping this into a video awarding points, as I've done in the past, could actually be pretty funny and entertaining. So let's go. On this side, we've got the Nikon Z50 II, which was announced in November of 2024 for a suggested price of about $900. And on this side, we have the Nikon Z9 announced in October of 2021. There's a huge difference in price, and there's obvious reasons for that. But the Z50 II is cheaper, so 1 point. Also, I hate built-in flash, but technically the Z50 II has it, and the Nikon Z9 doesn't. People like that, so 1 point. It's also lighter weight, so how about another point? As far as sensors go, the Z50 II has a 21 megapixel BSI CMOS sensor, and the Z9 has a 46 megapixel stacked BSI CMOS sensor. That means the Z9 is higher res and faster. 2 points, Z9. The Z50 II has an ISO range of 100 to 51,200, expandable to 204,800, while the Z9 has a 64 to 25,600, expandable to 32 to 102,400. I don't really know how to score this because while the max range is better on the Z52, the Z9 is better in the areas that really matter for people. I would rather have a camera that does 64 ISO than a camera that can do 51,200 comfortably. Also, noise is getting better and better at high ISO. Just kind of want to award no points because they both would get a point for different reasons. They have the same size rear screen, and flippy or not flippy is personal preference, but the Z9 rear screen is higher resolution at 2.089 million dots to the Z52's 1.04 million dot. So that's 1 point and we're tied. The Z9's viewfinder is also 56% higher resolution than the Z52's, and now the Z9 is winning. But on the topic of the viewfinder, the Z9 is 3 times brighter, so that deserves another point, and I should give a point for no blackout and it being larger viewfinder, but I think we get the point. The viewfinder is way better on the Z9, so we will leave it at 5 points currently. Moving on, they are both weather sealed, but the Z9 has this cool built-in anti-dust shutter mechanism that deserves a point. It also has built-in sensor shift image stabilization, and the Z50 does not. The battery ratings are always just way off and way too conservative, but the bigger Z9 battery rates at 740 shots to the Z52's 250. And while we are on the topic of shooting, the Z9 will do 20 FPS RAW to the 11 FPS of the Z52. The Z9 is steamrolling. I wonder why. More on that later. But hey, at least the Z52 has an Expeed 7 processor. The Z9, 493 focus points to the Z52's 209. The Z9 has a top LCD screen and the Z52 does not. That may not seem like a big deal until you don't have one. It's annoying having to look at the back screen or through the viewfinder to see settings. On that note, the Z9 also has illuminated buttons. I'll just give 1 point to the Z9 now for having a full-size HDMI port and an Ethernet port, which I don't need, but some folks do. I don't want to give 2 points for that, so 1 point. The Z9 has 2 CF Express Type B card slots and the Nikon Z50 has 1 SD. Peace of mind is worth a point for the Z9. Now the Z52 is quite a capable video camera, no shade, but the Z9 does 8K, the Z52 does not. Point for the Z9, but that is just a technicality. You do not need 8K. I don't even have a card that can store 8K past maybe 30 or 50 seconds. Well, that is absolutely disgusting. I actually stopped before I could have. I'm being respectful to the Z50 II. This video absolutely cannot be taken as a recommendation of which camera to buy. You should not even feel bad about having or not having either of these cameras. They don't even compete in the same game. The Z50 II, in my opinion, is so much more than a beginner camera. Price aside. Never have we had a beginner camera that is that good. The Z9 is a flagship, so it literally gets the kitchen sink thrown at it to the extent where they are as close to indestructible as we can get and filled with more features than are really able to be used by one single person with a few interests. The camera does everything, and that is why you pay so much for it and kind of feel like it costs too much, because you don't need everything that it does, but it's there. And because it's expected out of a flagship, and you would complain if it wasn't there. Meanwhile, the Z50 II is sitting over there for under $1,000 with everything you need, and not a whole lot that you don't. That is why vidIQ suggesting this topic at all is totally ridiculous. Nonetheless, I do hope this video was entertaining. I'm Z Wade, the Z Wade in Z Wade Photo. Stay sharp, YouTube.